The moral of the story is you have to have a system set up in place. You have to know what the statistics are. You have to be willing to commit to invest in a marketing plan and payroll in order to see scale that generates the returns. They're not hiring a producer without a marketing system in place and really wasting their time trying to get it to work with a new producer without statistics. Hello and welcome to the Insurance Agents Think Tank podcast. I'm your host, Todd McLean, and this podcast is all about how to grow and scale your agency. Today's topic is a question I get often. Todd, what does your producer's daily tasks look like? What do they do on a daily basis? And don't forget, you can check out this podcast and all our other podcasts on our website, agentsthinktank.com. Be sure to search for our Facebook group on Facebook. It's the Insurance Agents Think Tank. So let's dive into our producer's daily tasks. This is a really complex question, right? There's so many variables and it all depends on what does your producer do, okay? Meaning, do you already have set up marketing in place or did you hire a kind of producer / hybrid? Meaning, are they going to also produce their own marketing? Because this is probably the number one issue that I see agents make when they hire producers. You don't already have a marketing system in place that's generating a set amount of quotes, so you don't know what your closing ratio is on average and your contact rate is on average for that marketing type. And it becomes impossible, or you make unrealistic expectations from the get-go, because you might be having that producer generate their own leads. And in reality, what you really created was a position where somebody's not only a producer, but they're also a marketer. And when you give somebody that much responsibility, you have to rethink what their goals need to be and what their daily tasks look like. So, back in the day when I started my agency, I also had a producer / marketer until I got to the point where I realized, okay, I just need one marketer and they're going to generate leads for me, because now I can statistically find out, all right, if I have them on a dialing system and they're using these scripts and I'm coaching them on those scripts, they can generate, out of 100 calls, they contact 10 people, they generate one quote. And then I call it because I'm the producer as the agent. And then what I ended up doing is then building out departments within my office. I built a sales team, which is my producers. I built a service team, my CSRs, and then I have a marketing team. And by departmentalizing that, I was able to really dive into numbers to help me understand how to scale, who needs what type of training, and really dial in on what things I need to look into. So first and foremost, for this podcast to really help you, is do you have marketing in place, or are you making your producer also be a marketer? Now, what kind of leads is your marketer, or I should say producer, calling is really important too. And I'm going to share my screen here. If you're on YouTube, if you check us out on YouTube, you'll be able to see my notes if you want to. It doesn't really matter. You don't need to go to YouTube. You can listen to the podcast. But the first thing I want to make sure we do before structuring a producer's day, we got to figure out how many calls they need to make the sales that they need to make, to generate the premium they need to generate. So first and foremost, you need to figure out what are their goals. How are they going to pay for themselves? How's your marketing structured? Okay. In order to do that, we need to look at, for each marketing type, what is the contact rate of that lead type and what's your closing ratio of that lead type. To give you an example, and I'm going to go through these two examples, I use both direct mail and internet leads, and there's a dramatic difference between the two. For instance, on direct mail, I have a 100% contact rate. They're calling me, right? So my producers are spoiled to death. They get a phone call. It's the easiest lead in the world. On the other hand, they still got to work internet leads, which are not that fun. You have to generate a lot of leads or buy a lot of leads because it has a much lower contact rate. Meaning, if you have a 5% closing ratio on internet leads, you need to estimate that you're going to have about a 10% contact rate. That means for every for every one household closed, you need to buy 200 internet leads. Most people think if I have a 5% closing ratio, I only need to buy 20 leads. That's false. You're not thinking through contact rate, okay? So do not forget contact rate when figuring out the statistics. That's a big one people forget. And then also, will your producer be handling their own tasks throughout the day? Meaning, do they need to chase down documents? Do they need print ID cards? Do they need to talk to current customers? Are you making them handle service tasks along with sales tasks? That's really important. If you are doing that, even my own producers, they have to chase their own documents because I don't want a CSR to screw up their sale. It's just a way to keep infighting out in the office. So they need to get signatures and make sure they have discounts that they said should be applied. But they time block. Time blocking is critical for a salesperson that also has to deal with some service, okay? And we'll go through the time block at the end of this on what I recommend doing for my producers. And then you really need to look at premium goals for your producers, and this varies based on geographic area. For example, my ultimate goal I want them to hit as a producer in my office is 40,000 in premium, but my minimum goal is 20,000 because 20,000 in premium pays for that producer within 18 months. And that's my goal. So you're going to need to figure this out before you send an offer letter to a producer. You need to figure out, okay, what's their base salary? What's their commission schedule look like? Are you giving them renewals? And what is that going to cost me if they're making a minimum of 20,000 in premium? And I want that to return my investment on them within 18 months. Okay. So you got to figure out my minimum premium they need to generate in order for what I'm going to pay them within an 18-month period to backtrack what is the premium I need them to generate a month. And so what I want you to think about is now the lead types that you have within your office. I'm going to go over two examples just to kind of give you a rough overview of how my office works. So in order for my producers to hit the ultimate goal of 40,000 in premium a month, I know I have a 21% closing ratio on direct mail. Okay, it used to be higher. Our rates really aren't competitive right now in my area. I'm sure they'll go higher in the future, but right now I have a 21% closing ratio. Now my contact rate is 100%. So this is really easy for me to figure out. In order for them, and by the way, my average annual premium per household is $4,500. Okay, so in order for them to get a 40,000 in premium, I need them to quote and pitch. So they have to sales pitch 77 households. If they pitch 77 households at the 21% closing ratio, they're going to close 16 to hit their goal. Now, I need to figure out how many direct mail pieces I need to send to help that producer hit 77 quote attempts. And if I have a really good month in direct mail, a really good contact rate is about 0.75%. A lot of people say, oh, expect 1%. If they do say that, they're just trying to sell you direct mail. Direct mail does not have that great of response rates when you do mass bulk, okay? But, so each producer, I need to send 10,500 direct mail pieces. At that rate, it's about 61 cents. So $6,400 per producer on direct mail leads. And you might say, holy crap, that's a lot of money. But at a 21% closing ratio, if they close 16 households with $4,500 in annual premium, do not forget to double the auto if you have 6 months. A lot of people always forget that, and that's a big number to miss. That means my producer will sell $72,000 in premium a month. Okay? That's over their goal. So I could back that down if I needed to. But, I like to shoot big because there's bonuses out there. I want them to achieve more than their goal. So, what I'm going off of is their 77 quotes to get 16 households. And my commission on that annual blended average, I'm going to be about $8,600. So I actually made money if I had a great month in direct mail and getting a 0.75% return. Now, your average contact rate on direct mail is going to be more like 0.5%. Months like December or right after school ends and people are on vacation, you have these lulls that happen during the year in direct mail. And I fill those in with internet leads. So I actually do both. I do internet leads and I do direct mail. And so if I had a 0.5% contract rate, which is more of my average, and it cost me 61 cents, I actually need to send 15,500. And again, you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot. It is. And that's about $9,500 in costs for direct mail per producer. Okay. So I spend a lot of money on marketing in order to generate hot leads, inbound leads for my producers to close. And the reason why is because I make money off of it. Because if, again, the 21% closing ratio makes 16 households sold, $4,500 annual premium, still $72,000 in monthly premium generated. I'm at $8,600 in commission. I spent $9,400. So you might be saying, well, Todd, you lost money. Well, we're in this business for renewal income. By the second year, I'm definitely making money, even when you factor in salary, commissions to the producer, right? I want to break even in 18 months. So even at a 0.5%, I can break even. Now, here's a big caveat if you ever want to dabble in direct mail. So I use smarketingmail.com, right? If you want to dabble in direct mail, you need to make sure that your producer is solid. Do not hire someone with no experience and throw direct mail on them, because they are very expensive calls, and you want to make sure the producer handling these inbound calls has a very high skill set to close. They can do one call closes. They can really generate the returns that you need in order for it to be successful. So again, do not put a new person on direct mail. They should start more on your internet lead types of leads that are a lot cheaper and more activity to give practice. So let's go into internet leads for a producer. So if your closing ratio on internet leads is about 5%, remember, you need to figure out what a contact rate is. And so I'm going to be kind of generous here, because if you use things like text automation, which we have in Agency MVP, our average call contact ratio is 10%, but when you factor in text messaging, it's upwards of 25 to 30% in contact rate with that person. So don't forget that you need to have automation, text automation, to engage prospects and leads through internet leads. It's a big difference when you look at overall return. So to try to get that 40,000 in order to get those 16 households closed, I actually need to generate or buy 1,240 internet leads a month per producer to contact or actually get to quote 310 internet leads. At a 5% closing ratio is my 16 households. Hopefully that makes sense. I need to buy 1,240 leads because out of those 1,240, I'm only going to get in contact with 310. And then out of those 310, I know my closing ratio is 5% to get me those 16 households to get my producers 40,000 in premium per month. Okay. And out of those 1,240 leads, if my average cost is $8, depending on what type of leads, where you're buying them from, I'm still spending 10 grand in marketing, right? So the moral of the story is you got to spend money to make money. Okay. I know a lot of agents out there might be struggling day to day. You don't have to go this big because you can do it yourself. You can hire a part-time marketer to generate quotes for you. But the moral of the story is you have to have a system set up in place. You have to know what the statistics are, and you have to be willing to commit to invest in a marketing plan and payroll in order to see scale that generates the returns. And quite frankly, this is why you see agents. I've seen agents all the time where they'll come in and you just see people just skyrocket in sales. They blow up their agency. You have rock star new agents that are out there. It's because they understand the statistics. They understand that they have to figure it out quickly. They have to spend money to make money, and they're going about it in the right way. They're not hiring a producer without a marketing system in place and really wasting their time trying to get it to work with a new producer without statistics, right? It's almost like a mouse wheel. So you got to get off that wheel. You got to figure it out yourself first, backtrack into the numbers, go into what you need the agent or the producer to produce a month. And it's not that hard, right? It just takes a lot of effort because you're building a business. So hopefully that helps give you some guidance. Let me kind of show you how I apply that to my producers on a daily task. So a rule in my office is I want you to have at least 3 hours of talk time per day, okay? And if you don't have 3 hours of talk time per day, there's either two problems. One, it's my problem in that I didn't generate enough quality leads for you to call, or that you didn't have enough quality leads inbound call, because I do both internet leads and I do direct mail. Or two, you wasted time during the day. You didn't time block. You didn't spend enough time making outbound calls. So I also have a call goal, okay? On really good months, on really good direct mail months, I only require about 5 households a day quoted per producer. Because if I'm getting a lot of inbound calls, it only takes about 5 households a day quoted per producer in order to generate those 16 houses sold because of the 21% closing ratio. So I really don't require too many quotes per day if I'm having a great direct mail inbound call month. Now, if I'm not having a great inbound call month, then what they need to do is, if they're not getting inbound calls, they got to start calling all the internet leads, and we got to crank up. That's the thing. That's the reason why I actually like internet leads, is because you can dial it up at any time. So I can go from buying, 5 leads per day if I'm having great direct mail to 25 leads a day if I'm not. And that really helps us, keep track of where the producer's at in the month. And again, so we're tracking daily. What did you do yesterday? Where are you at with your goal? So that we can crank things up or crank them down. If I have a lot of direct mail inbound, if we're just crushing it with direct mail inbound, I don't want them wasting time on the internet leads. I want them focused on those very expensive but hot direct mail leads, right? So it is a delicate balance that you as the agent have to watch. And you have to talk to your producer and understanding, hey, where are you at with your goals? Are you getting enough leads? Do we need to make any changes to the lead sources? And you got to be engaged in that marketing, because you need to be in charge of marketing and really making sure your producers have the marketing in place to hit their goals. So I like to have time blocking for my producers. What it really does is it helps them hit their goals. It takes away those random tasks or things that they're not supposed to be doing, because they're supposed to be selling. And it helps also build expectations for customers. Let me tell you what I mean. So the very first thing my producers need to do when they get in the office is really organize their day and just have a goal set for their day, okay? For example, they're behind on their quote activity. Today, they might need to do more internet leads, right? We're not gonna be complacent. If I didn't get enough direct mail inbound calls, then you have resource for internet leads, so you need to crank it up, and you need to have a lot of activity that day. You need to make a lot of calls. And then about 8:45, so about 15 minutes of just figuring out your day. Where am I at? Where do I need to go? Got my day set. This is the activity. These are my goals. Go. At 8:45-ish, I want them to follow up with clients that they didn't complete the day before. Okay, one of the biggest problems that I've had with producers in the past, I call it the daylight rule. If you had somebody who called in for service and you didn't finish their item that day, then you call them that evening before you leave, explaining to them, I'm sorry, I didn't get what I needed to get done. I'm going to follow up with you tomorrow morning on that. Okay. And so the next morning, they're going to follow up and say, I'm working, or I finished that, right? You need to finish your tasks that morning. So instead of really follow-up calls, it's mainly follow up and saying that you finished the task. Now on the switch, so you see here I have sales calls on one side and tasks on the other. I want 5 hours of sales calls activity versus 2 and maybe a half hours of task activity, okay? From 9 to 10, and what I really did is time block out peak sales times, peak contact times when a salesperson is more likely to get someone on the phone. So you have 9 to 10 a.m. where you have maybe stay-at-home parents, elderly, people that don't work during the day, or maybe they work evenings. You can get a hold of them usually between 9 and 10 a.m. So this is when they're doing follow-up sales calls. People they quoted in the past, they're trying to chase them down, follow up, new quotes that they just did. If they have to follow up with the call, maybe you were missing information or it took too long to quote, whatever the case may be, from 9 to 10, they need to be pitching. I need to be trying to sell someone a quote, okay? From 10 to 11 a.m. is when, the contact ratio of people starts to fall. In that time frame, we're going to be doing tasks and quoting. Now, if I have internet leads turned on, then those internet leads are going to be interrupted at any given time if I don't have a marketer working them. If my producers are working them, internet leads you need to jump on immediately. So I'm going to have my producers between 10 and 11 not only doing tasks like service tasks or follow up with current clients that they needed to do a task for, billing issues. They're also going to do quoting. So if you had somebody you got a hold of and you need to quote them, here's a big problem, just time management that people don't pay attention to. Like, let's say you get a hold of someone between 9 and 10 a.m. Maybe it was an old lead and they agreed to let you re-quote them. You don't do that right then and there. Okay, you don't get off the phone with them and re-quote them immediately because you're in your twilight hour of between 9 and 10. I'm going to contact and get as many either quotes or sales pitches as humanly possible. And then between 10 and 11, I'm going to do the data entry, the work in order to generate those quotes. Now, if you want to really scale in the future, I would have somebody, maybe like a marketer, who's actually doing that work and data entry work. So that way these sales calls times is straight pitches. All I do is try to get somebody back on the phone and then I'm actually quoting them right then and there and trying to sell and convert. So think about that. Depending on your scale and size, eventually you want to get to that point where your producer has a live quote in front of them. It's a recent quote. Somebody else got someone interested, updated the quote, and now, or it was a new quote, and now they're making that outbound call, right? Your producer should be doing nothing but sales premium generation eventually once you scale to a size where you can afford a team like that. Now, so 11 to 1 p.m., we're doing sales calls again, pitches, new quotes, whatever the case may be. I want to talk to as many people as humanly possible about selling them a quote I already quoted or following up with older quotes, trying to get them re-engaged in a new quote. And I don't have my producers take lunch until at least 1 p.m., okay? Because you're trying to catch people on their lunchtime is the whole reason for that method. And then my producers take a lunch between 1 and 2, and then between 2 and 3, they're doing the tasks and the quoting that they generated in the time block before, right? So anybody they talked to between 11 and 1 and got information or to quote them, again, we didn't call them right back in 15 minutes. We're going to tell them, hey, I'm going to call you back between 3 and whatever time they're going to leave for the day. What time might be best for you to call you back? So does that make sense? You want to set follow-up expectations with the person that just agreed to the quote at a specific time later in order for you to be able to time block that data entry work into either 10 and 11 or 2 and 3. And that's when you're going to do data entry focus work. And when you time block like that, it makes sure that things don't get in your way, right? If it takes you 30 minutes to quote one household, how many outbound sales calls could you have made in that 30 minutes during a peak contact time? And so make sure that you're time blocking your day, and that's really going to increase your efficiency and your activity levels and making sure you're getting enough talk time and making enough outbound calls. And right before the end of the day, our daylight rule, I have my producer follow up with customers on tasks that they couldn't finish that day for one reason or another, and they promise that they're going to get it done the next day, right? So always make sure anything that doesn't get done, follow up the next day. So that's really what my producer's daily tasks look like in my office. And make sure, again, I can't stress this enough, make sure you know what the marketing systems in place are going to produce as far as contact rate, closing ratio, and premium generation before you stick a producer into the equation. Because if you don't have that, it's just a guessing game at that point. And so I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope it was something of value to you and how I think about everything from marketing to what my producers should do on a daily basis. Don't forget to check us out next week. I have a surprise for you, a surprise guest, and we're going to make sure that you are going to scale and grow your agency. Have a good day.